Welcome back to the God the Artist podcast. I'm your host, Morgan McCarver, and today we have special guest, Kristan Swan. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Kristan.
I am delighted to be here. Yes, thank you, Morgan.
Let's start off with how we always start off this podcast. Tell us a little bit about who you are and how you like to be creative.
Yes. I so gosh, creativity for me, I think I'll start there just because that has been such a through line for me throughout my life. And it is, I think of creativity as this wonderful kind of companion to getting to know myself better and
Mm.
getting to know kind of the the things that are meaningful to me and really finding purpose in my work and the direction of my life. I grew up in Southern California and I've lived there predominantly. And I was raised as a only child. I am an only child, and in a pretty chaotic upbringing. So, a lot of spending a lot of time by myself. And I think boredom is a really wonderful gift that, really can feed your imagination, right? And kind of get you to think about things creatively. I also am a voracious reader. I love to read all types of fiction, nonfiction, biographies, autobiographies. I Story is a big part of my work, and it's a piece. I think storytelling has been something, if I wasn't necessarily able to name it as a younger person or as a child, it's stories are really a I have such a deep connection just because that's how I feel like I learn. And I feel like that's also a way that we learn together and connect as people. And, my professional journey has been very uh, unusual, not very linear, I guess I would say. My undergraduate degrees are in fine art and also geography. So everyone assumes that I was excellent at making maps. And I don't know that I was excellent at making maps, but I enjoy both disciplines so much for different reasons. And I've worked on so many different fields, and really, again, kind of that through line for me is working with people and supporting people in really kind of helping them achieve the success that they want for themselves, and also connecting with themselves, because I think that for my in my own path, the more I could sit with who I am and get to know myself, that made for better decision making, essentially kind of being more in alignment with my choices and allowing for kind of a life that is just kind of is so full and so full of opportunity.
Wow, yes, thank you so much for sharing. You mentioned about drawing maps. I know you have a book out about heart mapping. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so last year I have the first journal that I created is called Spaghetti on the Wall, and that's primarily writing. It's using words at first and foremost. And last year I really found myself kind of in this space where I normally would sit down with spaghetti on the wall. I journal every day, and I try to do it in the morning. And so I was sitting down and it was like I had so much going on in my head. I don't know if you've had those days where it just was a buzz, right? And not necessarily in a bad way, but just so much going around, kind of ping-ponging around. And the thought of writing a sentence or even writing one word felt so insufficient to really describe or release what this whole bundle of energy that was inside of me. And I thought I just kind of remember, I mean, drawing is not my primary, I'm a pretty rough drawer in terms of creating, representational things. And despite that, I will say that there is this incredible calm that comes over me when I put pen to paper, pencil to paper. And I thought, I'm going to, instead of writing today, I'm going to do a continuous line drawing. So, meaning that I did not, once I put that pen to paper, I just let it go. And it wasn't about creating something that anyone could recognize, right? It really was just letting the pen kind of be a way to release all those jumble of thoughts and feelings and everything that was going on. And it occurred to me that this could be something that would be helpful for other folks too. And so heart mapping is the new journal that was a result of that moment that I had of feeling like, oh, it's too slow, right? It's too slow to do that. And what I love about the act of drawing and drawing, not in a self-conscious manner, right? This is just for you. This isn't for anyone else. Is there's I do feel like it ends up giving you peace and can give you a real connection or window into kind of your heart and where you're at in the moment.
Mm. So, for those who aren't super familiar with continuous line drawings, are you planning what you are going to draw? Are you kind of letting your mind just run wild while you're thinking about all that buzzing in your head? How do you approach putting pen to paper?
Yeah, for me, I'm not thinking about what I'm going to draw. I am more uh the journal has instructions, and one of the things I recommend before actually starting the drawing is taking a moment to take a breath, right? To become present in yourself. And because I do think journaling, regardless of the specific modality, is a just this wonderful moment where you are giving yourself the gift of time of spending time with yourself, which I know probably sounds really odd or funny, but think about how often in our days we are just, even from sometimes the time we wake up, that we are just immediately going from one thing to the next without a breath, without kind of fully coming into ourselves, so to speak. I don't know, do you have those days ever? I
Oh, yes, yeah. More, probably I have more of those days than the paced out normal days. So
Right.
that's a great idea to be able to take the time to just kind of regroup, I guess.
Yeah, and actually, I very purposely, most of my workbooks and journals are not meant to be things that where I'm suggesting that you spend an hour or even a half an hour, right? The way that I've designed these things are really for 15 minutes or less, right? I mean, by all means, if you have more time, go for it, but it's designed to give you I don't think we have to, that even that short check-in is so powerful for grounding your day and kind of setting you in a place where hopefully you can stay just a little less frenetic or frantic, right? Or also remember to, not sweat the small stuff, so to speak. So back to the continuous line drawing in the heart mapping, I really suggest that you take a moment, take a breath, check, make sure you feel, everything from the top of your head to the tips of your toes, and think about what is kind of top of mind. What would you say your kind of current state of being is? And that oftentimes is that place where then I will put my pen to paper and just go with it. And sometimes it just looks like, for me, it looks like loops after loops after loops, or kind of maybe more of a tornado looking type of image, or, sometimes it can be this, a little bit more jagged and a little bit more, lines kind of zigzagging down the page, but it's whatever, there's no wrong way to do this. And that's the
Mhm.
other thing. I have taught journaling workshops, and it's so funny because sometimes I'll have people that come in and they're a little bit nervous about this because they're thinking, oh gosh, am I going to do this right? And journaling it is for you, which means there is no wrong way to do it, right? It is this is your time. So I would say, if there's a right way to do it, maybe the right way has to do with you put it on your calendar, you show up for yourself, and bring your curiosity.
Yeah, I love that. Really being able to express yourself but not have to make something where others are going to judge it. Do you
Yeah.
go back and like color in your continuous line drawings and do you ever analyze those or is it more about just getting that expression out on the paper?
It really depends on the day I'm having, because there
Mm,
are, yes, there are those days where it's just like, I just need to get this out. It's kind of, it's just like a brain dump, right? Sometimes you do brain dumps with words. This is just a drawing brain dump. So in those instances, sometimes I just feel so good that I've done it that I'm kind of like, okay, I'm ready to move on. And the beauty of the journal is there is a facing page to the page that is designed for your line drawing. And so that facing page is kind of this fun space where sometimes I want to keep drawing. And so I can continue to draw. I might swap out for some colored pencils if I had started with just ink, or, I can have a little more fun. Sometimes in that process, there have been these moments where I'm doing the continuous line drawing and I'll think about this idea that I had that I didn't really, it may have been just a little seed of an idea. So that facing page is a great place for me then to maybe do a little outline, or if I need to make diagrams of what I'm thinking. Sometimes a dream will come to me, right? And so, kind of that facing page can be that dream journal. And sometimes it's as, kind of mundane as it's literally my list of to-dos for the next week. Like by doing that kind of that clearing of what was kind of clutter in my brain and in my, oftentimes in my chest too, um, then I can get down to the business of what I really want to be tackling this week, and what I want to be, because I do believe in making lists. For me, lists are such a great way to remind myself to stay on track, obviously, but also to remind myself of where I want to be putting my attention, because, we're living in the attention economy, right?
mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
everyone is vying for our attention, and it in, a lot of the stuff that is out there that is being, flashing before our face and our eyes is really, um, you know, it's pretty easy to get drawn into, even sometimes I'll end up reading these articles because I'm looking at the news site on my phone or something, and I'm like, I don't know that I really needed to do that right now.
Mm.
So those lists that are a result of, the clearing, again, are kind of good information about where I want to be putting my attention.
I love that kind of reorganizing or maybe just reminding yourself what your priorities are. I think that's a
Yeah.
great idea. Talk a
Yeah.
little bit about your first book as well, The Spaghetti on the Wall. Where did that title come from?
Well, so growing up, I mentioned that I was an only child, and as a result, I hung around. I mean, there were a lot of adults around. So there was, my grandparents, and then my mom and dad divorced when I was pretty little. So both of my parents kind of they didn't have big families either, so the people that they worked with kind of became like a family. And I'll never forget, my mom is not a big cook, and she won't mind me saying that. And she had a really dear friend who would come over and love to cook, um, and she was really very theatrical, and it was so fun to watch her because she really made, it was way before cooking shows, and she made it a big production. And one of the things was making pasta, because of course everyone loves pasta. And I'll never forget the first time she's like, okay, so should we check and see if it's done yet? And I'm like, yes, of course, let's do this. And so she takes, the pasta or the spoon and gets a noodle and throws it up on the ceiling. And I'm like, what are you doing? I'm thinking in my head, like, you're throwing, this is an adult throwing food around, right? And it dropped, and she's like, oh, it's just not done yet. And so we did that until it stuck, right? And then the pasta is done. So I love, obviously, that made a huge impression on my, young mind. And because it was so unexpected. And I just have always loved this idea of, I love to say yes to things. I like to try different things. I'm curious. And I also grew up with, parents who were like, oh, you can be anything you want, which is a great, that's a wonderful suggestion. However, there was absolutely no guidance on how you actually figure out
Mm.
what it is that you want or how you go about it. And so Spaghetti on the Wall came at a time when I was helping other business owners, business founders, um, and entrepreneurs. And I was observing these people that I was coaching. Uh, we would talk about kind of their goals and aspirations, and then they would tell me, we kind of have our weekly check-ins or what have you, and they'd be telling me kind of the things that they did. And so their actions were kind of taking them in this direction, whereas, their goals and aspirations were in this direction. And I just remember thinking, what because I can't really change people, right? I mean, and I'm not really in the business of changing people, but what could be a tool that I could create that would be helpful to kind of have people get this awareness around what you choose to do and the impact it has, right? And how to make choices that are in alignment with the thing that you're saying that you want. And so Spaghetti on the Wall is what came forth. And of course, I mean, in full disclosure, this was a time when I was really struggling myself personally. And I was making choices that were very much not in alignment with what I was saying that I wanted, and really out of alignment for the person that I knew myself to be. And I mean, I needed spaghetti on the wall is the truth of it. So it's it has evolved a little bit over the years, but it remains, I think, just this very accessible and, um, you know, kind of not, it's a lot of times people think about self-discovery as being really kind of, hard work that is you're gonna have to just, it's gonna be painful or it's gonna be this or that. And I don't know that it has to be. Right? I mean, I think that there are ways to really get curious with yourself and a lot of it probably starts with letting go of judgment, because I think that that's where so much pain can come from when we feel shame or guilt or, just all those kind of those emotions that we'd rather not feel, frankly.
Mm,
So if we can let go of judgment, and start to sit with ourselves, all the parts of ourselves, then I think there's a way to discover information about ourselves and also kind of recover who we are, kind of a wholeness that gets lost when we are really following someone else's map, right?
mhm. Yeah, so you mentioned you needed the spaghetti on the wall just as much as you wanted to help others with that book. How did you
Yeah.
come to the point where you decided with both books, like, I need this book, so I'm going to be the one to write it and put it out into the world?
Well, I think that earlier I alluded to the fact that creativity has been this constant companion, for me in my kind of evolution as a human. And it I also, as I mentioned, I read a lot as a young person and as a little kid. I mean, I can't remember not knowing how to read. However, the idea of writing felt a little bit, didn't feel like that was a way that I could express myself. I don't think I
Mm,
had, especially being little, it's like the connection between kind of emotion and my understanding of the world wasn't, I didn't have the language for that. So, you know, as a little kid, I think that just the drawings that I would do, and the collages, and I loved to do. I would do different, like things with sewing and needlepoint or just stitching. So there was the kind of that. There always was a real connection for me between creating and and learning about myself and also about the world around me. And and that kind of moved into photography for a while. I really loved that. And then, as I mentioned, I was a fine art major, so I was doing printmaking, and I really fell in love with making my own plates. And I love that, again, that connection of creating the plates and inking them. And then later I went into design work. And so there's a part of me that's always been very, always, creative expression is so important to me. And again, it's that connection to learning about myself and the world and how I relate to the world. And that includes other people. And so there's that. And then I think I've also been always kind of entrepreneurial at heart. I have had my own businesses, and as I mentioned, I love working with people. So I really, the journals are kind of this perfect, and the workbooks that I have too are this perfect extension of all those pieces of taking kind of my creativity, taking the parts of my learning and my kind of awakening to kind of a deeper understanding of myself, and hopefully allowing other people to find some use or some help in these tools.
That's beautiful. Have you had feedback? Have you, I don't know if you've like offered a class with your books, or I'm sure with the first one, you had some
Yeah.
feedback.
Yes, I will say that it's been very positive. I think a couple of things that people like specifically is, they like that it's not long, right? The practice is not meant to be long, literally. I mean, I would say 12 minutes is kind of the sweet spot, right? And it's also, I think that it helps that Spaghetti on the Wall is a prompted journal. So again, because I think the blank page, right, is pretty daunting. I mean, whether you
For
are,
sure.
just that blank page just stares at you in a way that makes you feel like any anything you do is not quite right. So I think that it's helpful that it's not the blank page staring at you. And I think that I love the description of one of my longtime users is kind of the gentle invitation to awareness. And that is, I think that awareness, again, is that place where we can then make changes from if we want to, right?
Mm.
So there's that piece of it. I also have a workbook that's based on one of my workshops, which is discovering your spiritual autobiography. And so that allows people to do more reflecting on kind of themselves and that which is bigger than themselves. Depending on where people are coming from, they have different understandings of that. And so it's uh, not meant to be there's no specific denomination or religious tradition that I'm putting forth for other people, but it is really a way for them to kind of think about that relationship too.
Yeah, that's awesome. You said that one's coming out soon?
Well, I do the workshop in person, and so there will be a workshop coming up later in the year, and available on the website in about a week or so. There is the self-guided workbook. So
Oh, cool.
yeah, it's a little bit. More focused experience of that. It's not meant to be done again in one sitting. So it's kind of, you can do it at your own pace. You could take a long weekend and do it, and or you could kind of once a week or something, you could check in and work on it. But that's also just a fun. I really I like that I like that exercise so much because I think for myself, and again, I'm my own guinea pig, right? Is that I think that in the process of thinking about my relationship with God, and it has been, there's so much hope there because when I reflect on and different prompts in the workbook kind of lead you through this. And if God is not the word you use, that doesn't matter. Sometimes I, you know, think of more I creator or the universe, whatever your language is, right? Um, it's I think that one of the things that I love about this exercise is it helps you remember just when you thought you knew how things were going to turn out in your life, you have so much evidence that things turned out in a really different way than you really could have ever imagined in that moment. And I find a lot of hope in that.
Hmm. Hope in the unexpectancy or in the realization, like kind of coming full circle.
I think the hope that I'm talking about, and other people have mentioned this too, who have done the workshop, is that when you're in a hard moment, especially, right? When you're in the thick of something, you you can kind of only imagine what you've already experienced, right? Or maybe something that you've read about or heard about, right? There's almost a limit to how much you can kind of you can think about what's next. And I think when you take time to reflect upon different instances in your life, you realize that there's so many other possibilities that are there, and we just don't know it in that moment, right? Because we don't have that experience yet. And so
Mm,
even to try, um I mean, I'll give you an example. Like if I ask you, to imagine the worst case scenario of something that you're worried about, right? I mean, it's pretty easy for you to be like, oh gosh, I know what the worst case scenario is. And you can just like go down that very, you know, you can go pretty far with that.
mhm,
If I ask you to think about what the best case scenario is, I feel like, I mean, for myself, it's like, okay, I can think about I can't I can think, oh, well, I hope this thing doesn't happen, right? Or I hope, I mean, let's say we can use the example of applying for a job, right? So the worst case scenario, I can think I'm not going to get the job, and then then what am I going to do? And this. And so then the best case scenario is I can think about, oh, I get the job. And then we kind of just we just kind of stop there. And in fact, what kind of maybe has happened in our experience upon reflection is, oh, we got the job, and then we ended up like meeting all these wonderful people, or we got to travel and we realized that we wanted to move somewhere else, or maybe we didn't get the job, right? Even maybe more something that people can relate to is that we didn't get the job, but then the very next week we got this, we ran into a friend who recommended us for a job that actually is so much more a fit for our gifts and our talents.
mhm. Yeah, I think at least I personally don't always look back enough. I'm always what's coming ahead, but like you said, what bad things do I need to prepare for, or even good things, just always kind of focusing on the future. But taking that time to look back and see, all that God has done for me, all the little situations that I didn't know would happen, or they happened in a different way that I thought, for better or for worse, but I see the benefit. Yeah, that's the beauty of life, I think.
Yeah, very much. And so I think that there is, for me, I believe that God does want what is best for us, right? I feel like there is a real sense of support, and not that we don't have to take action and have agency over our choices, um, and that there is this wonderful world of possibility that is available to us when we are living kind of in alignment with ourselves, right? And paying attention to the stuff that really is meaningful to us and
Mhm.
important.
Yeah, that's awesome. What is a project that you have always wanted to do, but you haven't pursued it yet?
Oh gosh. Well, on the quick answer on the one side, just in terms of kind of fun stuff, is uh, I did several years ago, I did an encaustic workshop, which
Mm.
working with melted beeswax and pigment, right? And using a, a, a rigid surface like wood. And I just find that to be such an interesting medium. So if when the time comes and I have some extra time and the space to do it, I would love to dive back into encaustic. Kind of the big thing that I am looking forward to doing more of in my work and is probably down the road for me is, I mentioned a little bit how important stories are and stories as a point of connection, whether we're connecting within ourselves or with others. And so I would love as time goes on to really give a platform, both online and also, in real life, to kind of more collective storytelling. And really in my big vision for that, it's not just the written word. It can be whatever your creative language is. So if your story is through movement or through song or through different visual arts, that I think it'd be so amazing to have like this exhibition where all of these different pieces of storytelling in a multitude of mediums is coming together.
I love that idea. Yeah,
Wouldn't that be
especially like,
fun?
yeah, especially everyone inspired by your books or who has followed your process, kind of
Yeah,
seeing the renaissance that kind of comes out of that. Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun. Good
yeah.
idea.
So I have the start to it on my website actually.
Mhm.
There's a section called the Experience Collective, and that is a place where people who have gone through some of my different workshops can choose to share their work. And it's challenging because we in the in-person workshops, which is a big reason why I do them in person, is we're really able to get to a degree of vulnerability with each other that um, sometimes then, because what we share, we are keeping amongst us in the room. So sometimes then, if I give people the option to put it on the website, it's like, oh gosh, I'm not sure that I'm ready to expose myself in that way. So it's growing slowly but surely. But yeah, but one day it'll be the in-person experience that we can all enjoy.
Yes, I look forward to that.
Yeah.
Is there an accomplishment regarding this whole process that you're just really proud of? You think this is like, this is the moment I made it, so to speak.
Well, I will say just for myself, I feel like the work that I'm doing now, even though I created Spaghetti on the Wall, I guess it was like 2017 when I first made the first edition. Uh, I think the way that I'm really, you know, sharing it with people, I finally feel like I'm doing the thing that I'm meant to do, and that I think the work that I did before, even though it was fun and it was interesting, so often, I mean, I kind of ended up in jobs that people had told me I was good at that, and so I kind of took that as meaning that I that's what I should do for a while. And I think obviously I'm kind of a slow learner, so I had to learn about myself. And so it feels really great just to be home, and really in a place of peace around what I'm doing. And to be in a place where I can be helping people
Mm,
and helping people, you know, really come home to themselves. Because I think that we all have so much inner knowing and inner wisdom that we just ignore or we forget about, or maybe life experiences have told us to kind of push that away. Um, and that just breaks my heart, frankly, because I think that there's also this culture that we live in that we need to be better, that we need to be fixing ourselves. And I don't know, I guess I'm kind of more of the mindset that maybe we just need to find ourselves.
mm,
And I think that it really, I guess part of the reason why I think that self-discovery is worth it is because, every single person is a really interesting, amazing, wonderful person. And, it's like if you would give yourself some time to get to know that wonderful person inside of you, it could really surprise you.
yeah, that's beautiful. And your ability to see the potential in everyone, I think, is huge. And that
Yeah.
is a great purpose to have. I can't believe our time's flown so quickly, but I'd love for you to share a last word of advice or any kind of last word you want to share with the listeners today.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think I kind of said it, which is, get curious with yourself. There's so much to learn about ourselves and it's really worth it. And I guarantee you'll be surprised and I would also suggest that you will probably be delighted. So, I think that journaling, of course, because that's the way that has been so meaningful and helpful for myself. But I love journaling. So if you're interested, I have a website that has all these tools on it, and I love to hear from people. So yeah, so I would love to invite people to kristanswan.com to take a look.
Awesome. And I'll put that in the show notes as well,
Thank you.
kristanswan.com. And that's where we can get all of your books, I'm guessing, as well.
There's books and there's information about live events.
Oh,
And
nice.
yes, I've got a women's circle coming up in April for people who are in the Los Angeles area. And I also write weekly and post that. So that's just kind of what's going on in my brain. And yeah, so there's lots of good stuff. But so come and take a
Awesome.
look.
Yeah, I look forward to that, and I look forward to reading your books.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for chatting with us today, Kristen, and we hope to have you back on the podcast soon.
Thank you, Morgan.
Bye.